Rev up your engines! Okay, I finally got my hands on a Fiat Abarth. The lady who owns it is the original owner, and it's a 2012. And I gotta say, it's got me intrigued. Just remember, this is a Fiat Abarth. This is not a Fiat 500 plain one. Mr. Abarth was a big Italian tuner, and he put his ideas into this car. This isn't the little puddle jumper Fiat 500. They wouldn't get out of its own way. It's a completely different animal. And considering that this is a 2012, and it has 165,000 miles on it, that mileage still has the original engine and the original transmission. It's had one clutch replaced, but actually that was because the mechanics at Fiat screwed up. All it needed was the cables for the shifter, because this has a shifter that runs with cables like my Celica. Kind of a weird design, but a lot of people have gone to it. And they gave her a clutch. They thought it was a clutch. Well, obviously that didn't fix it. They had to change the cables. It was under warranty. She didn't care, but she got a free clutch. With all that mileage on this thing, this engine still doesn't burn oil. She used liquid moly. She swears by it. Italian engine with that kind of mileage that doesn't burn oil? Hey, old Abarth knew what he was doing. Now, it is a very interesting variable valve timing setup that's run hydraulically in these things. And this, indeed, is a small car with a big Garrett turbocharger on it. And they put an upgraded wastegate on it. The original ones weren't too hot, so this one goes better. Now, you might say, but Scotty, Garrett went out of business. They went bankrupt. Well, that had more to do with liability and asbestos than anything else. Garrett Company here in the United States, they always made really good turbochargers. The thing is, it's a small, light car with a standard transmission. Sure, that's the same engine that they put in Dodge Darts and stuff, and everybody said, oh man, those things were turds. But you turbocharge it. You put it in a light car with a standard transmission. Not only are they fun to drive, they obviously last if you take care of it. But realize, the woman who owns this takes care of her vehicles. She tried all kinds of different oils and settled on liquid moly. You're gonna have to take care of a vehicle like this. As an example, this thing puts out 164 horsepower, but it has a rubber timing belt. They're interference engines. If the belt breaks, goodbye engine. So, she had the belt changed at 125,000 miles. They suggest 150. She's smart. She did it at 125. You have to do the maintenance correctly on these things. She's just like me. She's changing it every 5,000 miles with high quality oil. She isn't falling for that nonsense of, oh, you can change oil every 10,000 miles. Don't worry. And then they tell you after you do that, well, I burn a quart of oil every 1,000 miles an hour. And they say, well, they all do that. That's normal. No, look at this thing. All that mileage still doesn't burn oil because she maintained the thing. So with a turbo and a standard transmission, it's quick, it's fun to drive around because it's a light car, and it's still held up. I cannot say the same about customers of mine that bought regular Fiat 500s, especially the ones with the automatic transmissions that would blow up. The later ones, the engines were okay for the normals because it's the same 1.4 liter engine. But if you're looking at a Fiat 500, a plain one, I'd say you're crazy anyways, but if you were, you'd have to find out what engine you have. Diesel engines, 1.1 liter, 1.3, there's all kinds. It's the 1.4 that's the engine that holds up the best. Better design than this for taking all that power, and they don't have problems as long as you change the belt. You can see things are jammed in. It's a small car with a powerful engine. And she's been rigging stuff here, you know, taping it on, and the parts go bad. You don't always have to replace them. You can tape them up and stuff, and you can see she's got mechanics wire here, keeping things from vibrating. Hey, she's a member of the Scotty Mechanic Society, you know? If there's a way to jerry-rig something, hey, why not? If it works. I've had English motorcycles, I've often drilled the bolts out, twisted a mechanics wire. Do you want the bolts shaken off? No, and I did that from real world experiences. When I'm driving down the road and I go to shift my Norton and the gear shift for my foot, it's gone. It fell off. Well, then you drill them and put wires. Guess what? They don't fall off because they can't fall off when a wire's holding them on. They can't. It's impossible. She has replaced the struts, but only 1,000 miles ago. And she admitted it was bouncing around a lot. She didn't have the money, but it still drove down the road. And even with the worn out struts, it didn't wear out the tires. So it wasn't that big of a problem. But it does have one problem. It's haunted. She took the sunroof fuse out because last winter, randomly, the ghosts were opening her sunroof. In the winter here in Rhode Island, it gets cold. You really don't want to use the sunroof anyway. But it's got some gremlins. Now, of course, everybody knows what's Fiat known for. Fix it again, Tony. Electrical problems, right? Now, This has been nothing like a classic Fiat back from the 70s when they were absolute electronic nightmares. This one's still got the original alternator, and the headlights and the turn signal and everything works on them. They've definitely improved their quality when it came to that. Even though this one was made in Mexico. Hola, says the car. So maybe this particular one made in Mexico isn't going to say arrivederci because it's still going strong after all those miles. I gotta say, it's been a shocking experience meeting this one. All we need now is Charlie Sheen to drive around inside his house. It was only a year and a half ago they stopped making them in Mexico because they pulled out of the United States from bad sales of the Fiat 500s. Like I say endlessly, 96% of Americans drive automatic transmissions. So, there's not that much of a market to begin with, and they just gave up when they only sold a couple thousand in the last year that they were selling them. It doesn't make any sense for them to try to sell them. The regular ones just do not fit in with regular Americana. And speaking of regular Americana, now, this does have back seats of a sort, but that does not fit with Americana either, because Americans are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and they could never fit in this car. If you really look at it, there's only way to get headroom in this car, and that's by opening the trunk. Then you'll have some headroom with the trunk open. But on the other hand, with the seats thrown forward, it's a cute little hatch space that you can carry stuff around in. You know, you want to go camping or something, you could get fold-up tents and throw them in here and carry a reasonable amount of stuff. But if you're carrying your friends, just make sure they have really short legs. Now, it's got a snazzy interior. You can see it starts right up. It actually has kind of a mini type sound, just like in a Mini. Now, the AC still works, and here we go on Rhode Island bumpy road. Now, we know this thing is going to be bumpy because not only is it a Fiat 500, but it's an Abarth. They have stiffer suspension, so they handle well. They're a lot of fun to drive, but they're not a lot of fun to drive over bumps. Unless you like being jumped up and down, in which case, they're a scream then. So let's see what this thing can do. Yes, they are fun to drive. And that's with 168,000 miles, original engine, original transmission. It really handles on the road. It just is a dream. You get no problems at all handling. It's a stable driving vehicle. It's got a real cool looking steering wheel too. Okay, all that mileage. And look, is the gear shifter shaking? No, it isn't shaking. I gotta say, Abarth knew what he was doing. They designed these things. They are really fun toys. Now, she's learned her way though. She doesn't do burnouts anymore. Now, it didn't hurt the engine or transmission, obviously. They still work fine. But she did break a CV axle. So she tries not to do burnouts anymore. And that says something about the engine and transmission. In this particular one, that's well taken care of. And that's the real gist of these cars. She got a friend's got the same year Abarth, 2012. It burns a quart of oil every 1,000 miles because the owner drives like a maniac and obviously didn't maintain it correctly and didn't break the engine in correctly. Same exact car, yet one's burning a quart of oil every 1,000 miles, one burns no oil. And it's not like she's driving the thing slow. Her son, who's 28, is telling her to slow down all the time. And of course, the sound, it's unmistakable. It's not the annoying whine of a Ferrari. It's got a nice deep bass tone to it, and it's loud, but it's not obnoxiously loud. It kind of reminds me of a 4-cylinder version of the Shelby Cobra that I was driving years ago with 667 horsepower, only they had the V8 sound. This particular car, as far as I'm concerned, makes the best noise of about any 4-cylinder engine that I've heard, except for the Honda S2000. Now, there's a lot of stuff you can do, tuner kits, make the exhaust burble more, but she's left it stock because she likes it. I gotta say, it's a lot of fun, and if you can get that kind of mileage out of one of these things, she paid 20 grand for it new, all these years later, 168,000 miles, she's definitely got her money's worth, because it still runs like a clock, which shocks me. It's an Italian car, you know? They got this one right. And of course, it's not modern GDI fuel injection. It's regular port injection, a proven system that can last and not have problems like a GDI. So this thing is turbocharged with an American Garrett turbocharger, but it's not GDI injection. It doesn't burn oil. I could just about guarantee you, if they built these with GDI and put a turbocharger on it, it'd be burning oil. But maintenance, you change the oil every 5,000 miles, takes care of it, it still runs like this. So what I learned today, hey, everything that's Italian is not poorly made. And this one was made in Mexico, so even doubly so. Don't always listen to stereotypes, they aren't always right. I mean, a lot of times they are, but in this case, they aren't. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.